Take a rain check.
Rain check? I know where he lives. Kenmore City Council is now in session. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Danuski?
Here.
Councilmember Curtis?
He's excused.
Councilmember Smith?
Here.
Mayor Baker?
Here.
Councilmember Deputy Mayor Van Ness?
Here.
Councilmember Sperry?
Here.
Councilmember Herbig?
Here.
Thank you.
If you could please stand and join Janet Quinn in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You can never be too sure when you show up at a council meeting. We do. We love audience participation. All right. First item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. If there are no objections, the agenda will stand approved as written. Next item then is a presentation of bicycle repair station, Eagle Scout project. Jonathan Hitchcock. Yes, it's going to go on the screen, right?
Yes. Hello, my name is Jonathan Hitchcock. I'm a Boy Scout in Unit 610, and I'm here tonight to talk about my Eagle Scout project, which was a bike repair station at Log Boom Park. I've been part of the Cub and Boy Scout organization for about 9 years. So basically, the Eagle Scout project is a project to teach scouts about leadership skills and working with others and other important skills while serving their community. And I got inspiration for my project because I really like Log Boom Park. I've liked it since I was really little. And there's a lot of bikers going through there because of the Burt Gilman trail. So I thought it'd be nice to have something in case, a bike broke down or something. So the first part of the project was the planning, which actually took about 3 months. Once I had a written proposal ready to go, I worked with Sarah Sandquist, who was really accommodating and supportive of my tight schedule because I wanted to make sure that I got the project all done, if possible, before the weather turned really wet and miserable in later fall. So we had a few objectives, a few things that we wanted to make sure the project stood up to. One was that we didn't want bicyclists to hit their heads going past it, so we wanted to make sure it was tall enough. We wanted to make sure it was big enough to shelter a biker from the rain while working on their bicycle. And we wanted it to look nice even after years of the rather punishing Seattle climate. We had to get the materials for it, which we got mainly through donations. These are a couple of companies that helped us. We were amazed at the generosity of the community. Wow. And I'd say one of the most amazing experiences was with the manager at North City Lumber when I called him to talk about if they had a donation policy. He was rather gruff, but told me to come and present in person my plans. And as I presented them, he seemed a little bit skeptical, but after I finished, he was like, yeah, I think I can do that. What do you need? And he basically gave me like all the lumber that I needed and about 2,000 pounds of concrete, which was really impressive. I was quite blown away. This is a clamp that I got from Bothell Ski and Bike. I went to talk about maybe getting a clamp, and they had an old one in the back that a guy named Curtis, who worked there, volunteered to take it home, and on his free time that night, weld it to that piece there so it would fit onto my bike stand, and when I picked it up the next day, I saw that he had even gone to the trouble to spray paint it so it looked nice and glossy.
Wow.
After that was the building of the project, which we did mostly at home, and then in the garage and out on the driveway. My grandpa helped, and it was really stable. We could all sit on it, the top, but it was also really heavy, and for a while we struggled with how we were going to get it to the site. We had a couple ideas from like a pulley system to some like maybe a tree or something to trying to get a crane in there, and we decided that it was maybe a bit big anyway, and we could kind of cut it down just a little bit, so we went with that. We had to cut the roof a little bit smaller than we were anticipating, but it worked out. Then we did the site preparation. We originally staked out this spot, though we got a spot a little further down the trail, a little further from the bathrooms, which was actually a really nice spot that Quinn marked out for us. And we got an auger lended to us from Aurora Rents, and we started to drill down, and one of the main problems with the spot was that because of all the trees around, it was really rooty when we started, like almost immediately, and the auger got stuck to start, and we thought we might have to dig out 2 holes like 3 feet down each and a foot across, which would have taken hours. But we managed to kind of break them up, and the auger got through quite nicely after that. I donned some headgear, and we were really lucky because we realized at the end for one of the holes, we had just barely missed this gigantic rock that there was. I mean, if we hit it, I don't know what we would have done. It was like a big rock. But we managed to avoid that. And then we installed the structure. So we're going to do it on Friday, but this was the weekend that huge storm was forecasted that people said was going to break records. And so we realized that to get the concrete poured and stuff, we needed to push it up a day to Thursday. And we had some volunteers from church planned for Friday, but we realized we needed them, and it was the day of, so we kind of panicked and tried to call and hope we could have pulled a few people in. But what was really amazing was that we managed to still grab everybody, and they all came that day to help me out, which was really humbling, and I was really grateful that they did that for me. We managed to get it done before it was pitch dark. It was pretty dark, but we managed to make it before we couldn't see anything. And then the next day, which was Friday, we got the concrete slab put in. We ran into the roots and discovered that it wasn't just right there, that it was a little bit rooty ground, but we conquered it again and set up the form. And at first there was a couple complications with the electric mixer that we got. Initially our generator that we had cut out when we started the mixer. It didn't have enough power or flipped something. And we thought we might have to do almost 2,000 pounds of concrete by hand while we were racing the weather to get it in before the rain came. But we we flipped off the eco switch for the generator and got that going, which was a great relief. We edged it. And then the next day we installed the roof. Originally we had my dad up there because he's quite tall and we thought he could reach a little bit further, but he couldn't really get the angle right to get the screws in higher up. So we got my grandpa, who has bad knees, up on the ladder while we supported him. And I wasn't always looking up at what was going on, and at least one time, he almost came down on me, but we managed to avoid that, which was good. Yes. And after me and Dad took a moment to practice with the drills. I made a sign for it that just said bike repair station, so people would know that's what it was when they were passing by. Mr. Vaness was really nice, and he let me use his workshop and tools and showed me how to use them. The piece of wood, he gave me a piece of wood which was really nice, but I brought one in a Honda Fit, and it fit, but just barely. and it was a bit of a trick to get out. And the router was loud, and I was worried about my hearing, but because I forgot ear protection, but it's perfectly fine. So when installing the pump and tools, one of our big concerns was the pump, because to get a good industrial grade pump, they were at least a few $100, and we didn't know how we were going to do that. So we contacted a company called Dero, who makes those pumps, on a long shot that we might be able to get a discount. And it happens that the regional representative for the Seattle area, whose name is Paul, pictured there, happened to be an Eagle Scout. And he managed to get us a pump as a donation, and biked 17 miles from West Seattle with that heavy pump strapped to his bike to hand deliver it at the site.
Wow.
Here I'm installing it, and here are the tools, and here is the completed station. We got donations from quite a few different people, which was good because the project ended up a little more expensive than we were planning. The total service hours was over 400, some from me and a lot from other people. The dimensions were a little smaller than we initially planned, but I think they're still a pretty good size for someone to fit under. And it had a variety of tools for people to work on their bike with. Thank you.
Hey.
So I've got a couple of questions here. I heard a rumor a while back that somebody walked off with the tools. Is that true?
Yes, with a lot of them, but we're working with the city to replace them.
Good.
No, they took the tools?
Yeah, I mean, whatever we can do to make that right and make them secure so they can't, to help him out there, because I'm really impressed with the project.
Thank you.
And I thank you for doing that for our community. Yeah. Anybody else? Any questions, comments? Lori.
Well, thank you so much. I love hearing about Eagle projects, and usually they come in the beginning and say, can you help us? And this was so fun to hear a report, and thanks to you and your whole family. I think everyone was involved in it, plus all your families in the community. So thank you. That's great.
Thank you.
So our own resident Eagle Scout, do you have anything you want to
Now, wait a minute.
add?
How many Eagle Scouts are in this room?
I don't know, you, and, but he's the one that's halfway in charge.
Halfway,
You're the
okay.
other quarter.
No, I'm just really proud of Jonathan. I'm one of Jonathan's scout leaders, full disclosure, and he's just an outstanding young man, and this is a really impressive project. And we actually have a court of honor scheduled for this Wednesday night, and maybe you should present this on Wednesday night. Just a thought. So
I mean, I think we've had a really good representation by the Eagle Scouts. I mean, we had something done up at Swamp Creek Park, Wallace Swamp Creek Park, I believe. We had something done, again, at Log Boom. We had an information kiosk done at Squires.
Kenmore Elementary.
In Kenmore Elementary. So, yeah, we love Eagle Scouts. Thank you. The senior Eagle Scout in the room.
I remember participating in a project down at Log Boom Park before we were a city. And I don't know how much before, but we put in several picnic tables with 6-inch square posts and so on with an auger, like you were saying. If these power tools supposedly make the job easier. Well, they may make it a little faster, but if you're running that auger and hanging onto those bars and it hits a root, the root doesn't move, you do, and it just spins you, right? It's hard work, really. So I know what you're talking about there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We really, truly appreciate your service to the community.
I have no idea what happened to those picnic tables.
Wow. Another project. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
You want to have a group photo? Sure. Let's go over there by the flags. Go here by the flags. Huh?
Where they would?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
treated wood.
probably did, huh?
So,
If you
it'll
don't,
last forever.
yeah, if you don't refinish them sort of regularly.
It's in the ground, it lasts.
Oh, okay.
All right. This is a great way to start a meeting, I tell you.
It is.
All right, next item on the agenda is citizen comments. This is an opportunity for you to express your views on issues that are important to you and to the community. And we ask that you please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Clerk, please call the first person.
There's no one signed up.
Nobody wishing to speak. Well, if nobody comes forward and wants to be heard, I will declare the public hearing. I mean, not the public hearing, city comments, and closed. And next item on the agenda will be the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
And I'll second. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor of adopting the consent agenda say aye. Aye. Opposed? Consent agenda stands approved unanimously.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
You were just a little too quick for me, but that's okay. I do have one question on the second item, the delegated authority for the city manager and staff. And I was just wondering if maybe we could get an email or a reminder memo of the dollar amounts for each one. I'm assuming there's a dollar attached to it. So thank you.
Chris?
It doesn't have to be right now if that's, you know.
Real quick, this is an odd one. We've always signed reimbursements for our grants. Council authorizes us to enter into grants with funding partners, so we come to you for that already. We come to you for our purchasing policies, execute contracts with consultants. WashDOT now is asking for us to get permission from you to do reimbursements like we always have. So it doesn't change how we do business.
Just housekeeping.
WashDOT just wanted us to provide a different piece of paper that says you've authorized staff to do reimbursements. That's how this all started, but we put in there all department heads.
Well, I appreciate the explanation. Thank you.
Yes, they like to throw more red tape at us. All right. Next item on the agenda, then, is a public hearing. And the public hearing concerning the assumption by the city of the rights, powers, functions, and obligations of the Kenmore Transportation Benefit District. Ms. Gregory.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. The Kenmore Transportation Benefit District, as you know, was created in 2012, and it has functioned as required as a separate legal and reporting entity. Now the state statutes allow cities and towns with the same boundaries as their TBD to assume that TBD and all of the rights, powers, functions, and obligations that go with it. This would be beneficial for the city as Kenmore does qualify, and this action would eliminate some of the costs of maintaining a separate district. About half of the entities that had created TBDs have now assumed their districts. On November 14th, the City Council passed Resolution 16282, indicating the Council's intent to hold a public hearing on this matter. That public hearing would be this evening. After the public hearing, the Council will have the opportunity to consider an ordinance enacting and enabling the assumption by the City of the Kenmore TBD. Are there any questions prior to the public hearing?
Any questions? Hearing none. Thank you. I will declare the public hearing open to hear testimony concerning the assumption by the city of the rights, powers, functions, and obligations of the Kenmore Transportation Benefit District. Is there anybody wishing to be heard?
There's no one signed up.
Anybody wishing to be heard? Is there anybody wishing to be heard on the assumption by the city of the rights, powers, functions, and obligations of the Kenmore Transportation Benefit District? Seeing nobody coming forward, I will declare the public hearing closed. So the next item on the agenda is to adopt ordinance number 16-0424, assuming the rights, powers, functions, and immunities and obligations of the Kenmore Transportation Benefit District. And the chair will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there further discussion or questions? Hearing none, will the clerk please take the roll?
Deputy Mayor Van Ness,
Yes.
Councilmember Sperry,
Yes.
Councilmember Herbig,
Yes.
Mayor Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Danuski,
Yes.
6-0.
So the ordinance is passed 6-0. Next item on the agenda is public hearing to receive public testimony on the 2017-2018 proposed preliminary biennial budget and 2017 property tax levy. Ms. Gregory.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So this evening is the second opportunity for the public to be heard specifically on the 2017-18 biennial budget and the proposed 2017 property tax levy. A public hearing on the tax levy was previously held on November 7th, and a public hearing on the budget was held November 14th. And beginning in October and throughout November, public hearings and presentations have been held on various aspects of the departments and the funds, revenue, and expenditures included in this budget. Attached to the agenda bill tonight is a summary chart of all revenues and expenditures by fund for the 2017 and 2018 budget, the city manager's preliminary budget message, and a copy of the presentation made on November 7th regarding the 2017 property tax levy. And the budget has also been available for review on the city's website. The budget is scheduled for adoption on December 12th. However, after tonight's public hearing, the City Council will have the opportunity to consider the ordinance to establish the property tax levy for 2017. It's proposed that the levy be set at $4,674,122, which includes the allowable increase of just under 1%, or 0.953%, which is $43,239, plus new construction of $86,592 and $7,153 of refunds to be re-levied. The assessed valuation is expected to be about $3.9 billion, an increase of 9% from last year. And so this regular property tax rate is expected to decline from $1.26 in 2016 to about $1.20 per $1,000 of AV in 2017. I do want to mention that with the passage of Proposition 1, about 31 cents will be added to the tax rate as an excess levy in 2017 in order to generate the funds needed to repay the debt on the new bond issue. Therefore, the total tax rate that the property owners in Kenmore will see will be close to $1.51 per $1,000 of AV, and the total dollar impact on a median valued property in Kenmore of $438,000 would be about $661. Are there any questions prior to the public hearing?
Councilmember Sperry.
Thank you. On the property taxes that are going to be added because of the levy passing for walkways and waterways, is that going to be rolled into just it'll just say property tax or whatever it is, or is it going to be called out as a special item? Who knows? We haven't ever done this before, right?
Right,
Okay.
right. The assessor treats it as a separate item and calculates the amount of the rate needed to generate the $1.2 million dollars that we need to pay the debt service. On the property tax bill itself, I don't know if it will be called out separately. I think it will be.
I'll show you when I get mine.
Yes, that would be great. That's a good question. I can ask the assessor's office when I speak to her again, how it's going to show up.
I think that would be good since it's going to be a change for everyone. So
Yes, it's definitely going to be a change. But I'll ask the assessor's office.
Deputy Mayor.
When we talk about the average homeowner and an increase, an assessed valuation of 9% per year, the increases on the whole city's assessed valuation, right?
Correct.
And it isn't equally spread per capita or per value across the whole city. Some houses might increase in value more than others.
That's exactly right.
So one cannot say that just because the average homeowner is going to go up this much, it's based on the assessed valuation, which is dropping from $1.26 to $1.20. But if your assessed valuation is going up, 20% a year, then your taxes will go up relative to your neighbors.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Some homes will not appreciate very much at all.
Right.
Some will rise faster than the broad
But
across
on
the
the
base.
average,
On the average,
You can quote the
citywide,
figures.
when they
There's
add
no
up,
way you can figure it out any other way other
When-
than
right.
each individual homeowner looking at his assessed valuation that has been issued to us on that card, which is what the following year's taxes are based on. I
Correct.
understand. Yeah.
That's exactly correct.
Okay.
And, hopefully we've done a good job of educating, the public about that and how that you can't predict what any one property is going to do from year to year.
Any more questions? All right. Then we will declare the public hearing to receive public testimony on 2017-2018 preliminary biennial budget and 2017 property tax levy to be open. Clerk, please call the first person.
There's no one signed up.
Nobody signed up. Anybody wishing to be heard? Anybody wishing to come forward and be heard? Anybody wishing to be heard on the 2017-2018 proposed preliminary biennial budget and the 2017 property tax levy? Seeing nobody coming forward, I will declare the public hearing closed. Next item on the agenda then is to adopt ordinance number 16-0432 relating to the 2017 property tax levy. Ms. Gregory, anything you wish to add?
I have nothing to add. Do you have any additional questions?
No additional questions. All right, so Chair will entertain a motion to adopt ordinance number 16-0432 relating to the 2017 regular property tax levy. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further comments? Questions? All right, clerk, please take the roll.
Mayor Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Danuski,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Van Ness,
I don't think this should be unanimous, so I'm going to vote no.
Councilmember Smith, Councilmember Sperry,
Yes.
Councilmember Herbig,
Yes.
5-1.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion, the ordinance stands adopted. Next item on the agenda. How can we adopt an ordinance when we haven't heard it yet?
We
Mr.
did.
City
We're going to
Manager.
hear it now.
Are you talking
Well,
about,
let's hear a report.
are you talking about the resolution that's in front of you right now? You certainly can adopt it tonight, but you don't have to. And
I'm just saying we need a report from her so we understand.
right. In fact, there's no rush or timeline on what Janet is about to
Right.
present.
So, this is on amending the council policies and dealing with ethics. So, Ms. Quinn, if you would like to proceed.
Do you have a copy of the resolution? Do you
We
want me to give
we
it?
do.
You have it.
It's in our packet.
Okay, great.
And just to refresh everybody's memories, you at your January retreat had directed us to come back with some potential language for conflict of interest. And so in keeping with that direction, we're bringing this policy in front of you for your review and discussion tonight.
And if we approve the adoption.
If you wish.
All right, well, thank you for the opportunity to explain this and give you a little bit of an overview on how I got to what you see before you in policy. So my process for revisions was just, as Rob mentioned, you expressed interest in having some policy around council ethics, and so I researched the Washington State Constitution, the WACs, the RCWs, the MRSC website, local policies. I included some language from the Code of Federal Regulations, which was recommended by the auditors. And then I utilized my background knowledge and training on OPMA and the public records and all of that, and consulted with Rob on deciding what portions were important, because it's a pretty huge topic, and then it was reviewed and edited by the city's legal counsel. So I'm just going to walk you through the changes to the original council rules and procedures. The first one is the structure of meetings. I just added a paragraph on the OPMA, just saying that all meetings shall be open to the public with the exception of executive sessions authorized by law, et cetera. You have that in front of you. And then in Section 4, council conduct, under purpose, I just added the word ethics to let you know that that's part of the policy now. I added Section B, which is really the core of the additions, the Code of Ethics and Conflicts of Interest. That whole section is new. And that is kind of well, I'll get to that in a minute, but it's kind of an amalgam of a lot of different pieces of what you saw on that prior slide. And then under prohibited conduct, 3J, Section E, I added language, I didn't change the language there except for adding a reference back to the conflict of interest since we added that section. And then in Section 8, I clarified the language. Originally it said any and all. Policies could be rules could be temporarily waived, and I just changed it to say any, with the exception of those that might be outside the law. And then just answering potential questions that you have, although I'll be happy to answer other questions live. But how I decided what to include and what to leave out, it's a pretty big topic. And the final policy is kind of that amalgam, as I mentioned, of the WACs, the RCW's language from other city policies, and the state constitution, and then finalized in consultation with the attorney, who I specifically asked, did I miss anything? Were there any glaring omissions? Was the language, did it make sense? Those are really the basic questions that I asked of the attorney. And then the legal language, not all of it is verbatim from law, but if I felt like it lost meaning or couldn't be succinctly summarized, I stuck with verbatim or pretty close to it. And then maybe a question would be, why not just reference the RCW or other law in the policy instead of spelling it out in the legal language? And I think the benefit to it is that if you spell it out, it provides clarity and definition, and people don't have to then go look up the RCW or the WACs. Downside, of course, is that if the law changes, the policy is automatically outdated. So that is a consideration as well. So as Rob mentioned, there's no deadline for this. This was drafted at your request. It's your policy, so I want to make sure that you're comfortable with it, and I'm happy to make any changes or revisions that you request.
When this was first suggested, I had visions of our original council policies was sort of a hodgepodge of stuff that was just sort of glommed together. And Councilmember Curtis, and I think others in the group, worked really hard to put it into the form that it's in. And so I had visions of this going awry again. You did a very good job of fitting it in. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Deputy Mayor.
Your introductory comments were that you've taken a lot of the stuff from this text from RCWs and other sources, other cities, and so on. There was a comment that you made about paragraph 8, that you changed this or that and not something else. Was this paragraph 8 in our policy before?
Are you talking about Section 8?
I don't know, Section 8 of what you've added here.
You want me to go back and you can tell me what you were looking at?
Well, it's under, the whole thing is under B, but then you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then there's 8.
Oh, so, okay.
Section 8 of Section B, or paragraph 8. He said something about that. Now, what's in red here is all new to our policy?
Did you get
Was
the
there
red?
anything about ethics before in the policy?
Not really, no. There was for employees, there was an ethics policy for employees, but it was really absent from this.
Okay.
That's one of the things that the auditor called out and wanted to make sure that we added in council ethics.
But the comment you made on 8 there was that we deleted this and added that. And I didn't follow what you were saying, and if we deleted something, what did we delete, and was it from our original policy, or is this a deletion from what you got from other cities or the RCW or what?
Okay, I think I understand your question. I apologize for being slow
I'm sorry.
here.
Well, could have made it more clear.
I think we're talking about Section 8. That's the only thing that I really took anything out, and that's the very last page. It's Section 8, waiver, effective waiver of rules, and the last sentence is the City Council may, by a majority vote,
Okay.
temporarily
Paragraph
waive.
8 of Section B, the big long.
Not Section B. This is on the very last page.
You refer to a page number?
It is
page
on page
18.
18.
Oh, I see, yeah.
C, quasi-judicial matters.
No, page 18. Down at the bottom, you see the page number.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. Okay. then I think I
That whole Section B, it's all new language. None of that was in the language before. So
Okay.
that's why it's all redlined. But then on Section 8, what I took out was originally it said, the City Council may, by a majority vote, temporarily waive any or all of these rules. And because we added a lot of section that was a legal requirement, I took out the all and just said waive any of these rules unless otherwise inconsistent with applicable law.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. But the total mass of all the red ink that was on this just surprised me. You know, why does it have to be that complex? And I realized that the attorneys had a hand in this, and it had to be, I guess.
There are a lot
It's
of
a good
laws.
thing I'm colorblind, because I can't see the red, so.
Well,
there
it's
you
on
go.
the actual text here on the thing, not on the screen. But
There-
yeah, it's a
there are a lot
it's
of-
a lot of
Yeah.
stuff in there just to say, hey, do what's right, guys. You know, if you stand to profit from this in some way, then you probably ought to recuse yourself. Is essentially what you're trying to say, right?
For a portion of it, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what I found interesting was, the state law says that the dollar limit is $50 for gifts, but on page 10, section 15 on page 10, actually talks about there may be instances where you can receive something that exceeds $50 in value. I found that a little bit surprising. But a lot of these make sense. The council may be given a floral arrangement, for example, that might be more than $50. So I thought these were interesting items that were exception to that $50 rule.
Councilmember Herbig.
Thank you, Janet, for your work on
Yeah,
this. I
sure.
appreciate it. When I brought this up at the council retreat in January, I was kind of what had happened in Bothell was very heavy on my mind, and so I'm glad to actually see us taking the language, even if it already applied, and sticking it where council members will kind of be forced to read it and realize that it does apply to them, and it's not just hidden off in some RCW. And this is slightly unrelated, but since we had the section open and I reread the council procedures, which I know is kind of separate from the work you were doing, but I noticed there was one thing that I think might be slightly off. So under section 3A13, describes how we appoint new council members. In 2014, we kind of wrote whole new procedures for that. And I think if we already have this open and we're going to be approving new procedures, it might make sense just to fold those directly in so we don't have two conflicting policies.
Patty and I just talked about that this afternoon. I didn't realize that had been passed in 2014, but I agree with you that that's really, it would make sense, total sense to put it in
It
there.
was Section 3A13.
13. Okay. Committee of the three councilors.
So it's on page 5.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, if we just clear that up, then we'll know next time how we're appointing our next council member when that opens.
So are you asking, right now, that's a separate policy. That's the way that it was approved by resolution. So what I think I'm hearing you ask is that be rolled into this and just reapproved as a
Well, we can
total?
do it one of two ways. I mean, we could also just strike that particular paragraph out of the council policies before we approve this. I just don't want to have two approved policies that are conflicting.
That are in conflict,
So
right?
one way or the other, if we could clean that up, that'd be great. But thank you very much.
It's your policy, so you have to tell me which way you would like it.
I would say, for ease's sake, we just strike that subsection out of this policy.
So strike
And
number
insert the
13.
one.
Well, no,
That's
just,
applicable.
well, the other one's already passed, so we wouldn't have to repass it. We could just keep it
No.
as is.
What is the
Yeah,
other
but it
one
needs
say?
to be in this section.
Well, that's the other way we could do it, so.
I mean, I'm trying to keep this consistent, and so, I mean, I don't want a piece here and a piece here. So if that's what we've agreed to, then let's just fold this into where 13 is, because that spells it out.
And I will tell you that when I was looking, I did not see that. So I think for ease of finding it,
Yeah.
for you and citizens, it makes sense to all be in the same
Oh,
policy.
same
And
place,
I
yeah,
would
that works.
Yeah,
I'd
it
be
does.
happy to do that.
What is the conflicting policy that we've approved?
We have
Overrides.
Yeah, we put together a whole policy for how we were going to appoint
appoint.
Councilmember Danuski, and that conflicts with what's in the council policies that we have in front of us right now.
We need to.
It was
sort
in
it
May
out.
of 2014, and it was called council vacancy and leave of absence.
Yeah.
And it just spells out a procedure.
And so if we can just pick up that part there in 13, and just, get rid of 13 and add that, and then it should all fit. I mean, you've done a good job with this, so I'm sure you'll make it flow.
No, I want it to work for you. So
No, it will.
The one that you passed on 13, is
When
the
we-
exact same situation. You're adding a piece to the policies. It's the exact same. It should be in with it, yes.
Right, yeah, right, should be in, right. Yep, okay. One thing that I'm curious about how this fits, and this is where the city attorney comes in. There's been a couple of instances here recently, and there's been an instance in the past year, where, one, I was invited to go on a delegation where a trip would be paid through Senator Cantwell's office. I'm not sure if that would be allowed now with the adoption of this. The other thing is, as Vice President of Sound Cities Association, the Seattle Chamber has given 2 free trips to attend the Chamber leadership events. One was in Miami and one was up at Cascadia. And next year there'll be 2 more. And I'm not sure where that fits. It looks like it could fit on page 66.
66.
Yeah, page 66 on, which is actually page 10.
Page 10.
Well, it's
Thank
page
you.
66 in the whole packet,
Okay.
and it's 10 in this section. So admission to, G. Admission to and cost of food, beverages consumed at events sponsored or in conjunction with a civic, charitable, nonprofit, governmental, or community organization.
Yeah, and I'm going to
So
let
would
the attorney
that,
respond in full, but
these trips, transportation, all that included, is that going to fit in here? Are we going to continue to be able to do that, or no, we can't?
First of all, let me apologize for sitting in the audience today.
Turn your switch.
I thought I turned it on.
There.
Is it on now? Thank you. But I have a bad cold, and I was trying to stay as far from the dais as I can, particularly as far away from the city manager as I can get, so he doesn't have to share my joy of having this cold. I do have a couple of disclosures to make. The first is that I was not the city attorney who reviewed this draft, And the second is that the attorney who did review it, I get the impression maybe reviewed it very quickly, primarily to review whether the document fits together internally. One reason I say that is because what I've noticed in looking at this document this afternoon, and I was asked to look at it because one of the council members had a question about it, is that there is a gift or acceptance of a gift issue, which the mayor is talking about, that I think that you need to be aware of. And that is that under state law for city officials, city elected council members, you are governed by Chapter 4223 RCW, particularly 4223070. And that statute prohibits you from accepting any gift regardless of value, whether it's 1 cent or $1 million. What you see on page 10 of this proposal before you, particularly sections 14 and 15, and the mayor was referencing a portion of section 15, is the state statute on ethics and conflicts for state officials and employees, which is in Chapter 4252 RCW. I have not had an opportunity to look at the state statute closely to see how it tracks with what you have in front of you today. But I do have to tell you that the rules that relate to state officials and employees are different from the rules that relate to you. So one of the things we're going to have to do is to review that again and make sure that what you have before you next time is something that is accurate and concise, and obviously in conformance with the law that applies to you. So, Mayor, in answer to your question, I agree that under subsection G, perhaps the scenario you presented would be an exception, but my comment on that is it would be an exception under the state law, and we'll have to figure out if you can, and if you want to, have those same exemptions in your city council rules.
Okay, yeah, I mean, because obviously I'm not going to be the only person that's going to be in this position and be involved with Sound Cities or be involved with any other organization. And I mean, there's a number of council members here that I'm certain will have opportunities. So I want to be very clear on that. Deputy Mayor.
How does this differ from a couple of years ago when you served on the National League of Cities board? They paid your transportation back there for board meetings.
And that's another thing, yeah, you brought
that. Is that a gift or is that payment to participate in a defray expenses? And how does that differ from what you're talking about here?
And the same thing with the education meeting that we went to earlier in September, where part of that was paid.
Right, and my reaction is that your participation in intergovernmental or national or regional organizations that serve our cities is not a gift from an entity that is trying to give you a gift to persuade you to do something.
Absolutely not. There's nothing we
You're
can do.
members of those organizations. Those organizations provide for conferences and for events, and it's very proper to go to those functions. So that, to me, that's a distinction. Now, I haven't sat down to analyze legally why that should be a distinction, but to me, that's a very good distinction.
And the same thing would hold for the Seattle Chamber, right? I mean, there's nothing that we're going to pass. There's nothing that they're going to influence us with. These are just leadership forums that help us understand issues and, make us better leaders.
Yeah, well, that one I'd have to think about a little bit more. Because isn't the Chamber a private organization? It's not municipal officials joining together?
It's the Seattle Chamber. It's not us.
Seattle Chamber, okay.
But I think we should try to get language clarifying your ability to do that. Right. So yes. That's something
that would be helpful.
I agree.
But can I just...
And Allen's and others, yes.
But back to what the city attorney was saying just a minute ago. So are you saying that 14 and 15 don't apply and should not be in this policy?
Preliminarily, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah, that's kind of a bombshell. And City of Bothell has this in their policy. Yeah. So kind of surprised that 14 and 15 don't apply. So anyway, I guess we'll have to figure it out over the next week. We'll probably have to come back to you in January or February now figure this out.
Councilmember Hervey?
I'm sorry, I was looking at the RCW and I missed one of the numbers. What was the RCW you were citing earlier about that has to do with gifts?
42.23.070.
Okay, thank you.
And the section we're talking about is subsection 2, and that is substantially similar to 14 and 15.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Mayor? Alan? So one of the questions that I do have, first of all, I'm glad we're having this discussion. Obviously, we needed to have it, and it sounds like, it's not clear, and so it's perfect that we're moving towards clarity. Speaking of not clear, the one on litigation, I read it again. I don't understand what you guys are talking about here.
Where is that?
It's number 5, and it's on page 7, or maybe on the mayor's 22 page. I don't know. It's 7. And it's all this stuff about participating in litigation contrary to city, and then there are like 4 different forms of it. And what is this about? Does this mean if somebody gets mad and sues the city, or I don't understand?
Which number were you asking about?
I'm sorry. So the page number is 7, and then the number of the new section is number 5. And it starts, if a council member participates in litigation contrary to an official city action or position, and then, it says about recuse and all this, but then it has like A and B and C and D, and I just was having a hard time figuring out what box to put this in.
So that specifically came from the Bothell policy. Which might give you some context.
Okay, now I know what box that came in. So could we look at that too? I didn't understand it, to be honest with you. I'm not.
So it's just referring to if you individually take a different position than the council as a whole. That's really the context that it is in.
We do that all the time, but that usually doesn't result in litigation. I mean, that's kind of where I'm having a hard time with understanding why this is in here and what it refers to. So,
Anybody else? Questions? Councilmember Smith?
Yeah, I just want to let everybody know that I did speak with Rod today, because I just want to make sure that, I do a lot of business in our city, running my business. And so I'm comfortable, I believe, I don't quite know what the full implications are of some of these things, but I'm pretty comfortable with everything I see. And I was concerned because, if I'm selling a property or listing a property or appraising a property in the city, there can be relationships that things, I realize perception is so much of it, and so I'm very conscientious of it, but it's also something that I want you all to be aware of, that if you at any point think there's something that should be disclosed, just come to me or come to the body and let us know, because I do run my business here, even though most of my work is outside of our city limits, it is something that I'm highly in tune to most everything in here, and I just want to let you all make sure you're aware of it.
I think the only thing is that if you were selling a property that we are actually acting upon, something that would benefit, that you, because of the sale of that property, then obviously you just recuse yourself. That's the
right. I think in that situation, that's a very obvious one. There's a lot of things, though, that you start to realize when you start down the path of taking a particular situation, and you realize it's not always as clear. And that's why I wanted to have the conversation with the city attorney, because I will always err on the side of stepping back, but I want to make sure that everybody else is aware of this is something I'm highly in tune to because of my role here.
I think we all know that you will. It's just that we need to have it down to make sure that others do also.
Sure.
Anything else? Senator, you clear?
So I realize I need to talk to the attorney's office again to clarify. And am I hearing you that you just want that you want anything removed that is not specifically in 42.23? Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Oh, why don't we discuss that?
Yeah, I
We'll
think-
get back to the council on it.
Okay.
When he gets better.
Okay.
Yeah, I think.
Also, what I heard is language clarifying council's ability to
Appoint.
to go on business trips that are sponsored by other agencies. Also clarifying the litigation language starting at the bottom of page 7.
Yep.
Yeah, just what
Other
were we
agencies
talking
that
about?
have no impact
Okay.
on Kenmore. Councilmember Sperry, you had something.
I did, and when Councilmember Smith brought up, just about how it's not always obvious sometimes, one thought I had was, a request, do we have, if we get in a situation like that and we have a question, I mean, obviously we would start with city manager, but is that something that we could consult with our city attorney? It seems like a good idea to ask.
Yes.
I mean, I know in general, if you have to ask, you probably shouldn't, but sometimes it's just not that clear, and if there's a little bit of discomfort, it's probably better to have that conversation before anything goes. Thank you.
And then I also heard that we're rolling in the language from the 2014 resolution into the council rules and procedures.
On the appointment of a new council member, yes.
Vacancies and
Yes.
leave of absence. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Everybody
Thank you.
clear? As everybody's clear, we're happy. Thank you. All right. Dang, we're moving right along here. This is a good one. No. Record is like 3 minutes with Fred. All right. Staff reports. Yes.
Yes, I have.
Yay for staff reports.
I have a few things. Yes, we need to have one-on-ones this week. So, Councilmember Herbig, if Nancy Meehan hasn't contacted you already, she will this week to nail down a time. And then right now, Leslie Harris is passing out a memo. We don't need your direction tonight, but this is regarding that late in the process request for about $10,000 for a mural app. You know, the new mural on 73rd Avenue on the wall at St. Vincent de Paul. The artists involved are requesting about $10,000 to do a mobile app. And so, without stealing Leslie's thunder, go ahead.
You've
long as
almost
this-
summarized it.
As long as this is not being aimed at one particular one particular phone model. Because that's what this back page shows. But
So as Rob mentioned, during the city manager's budget presentation, we mentioned that we recently received a proposal and that we'd be coming back to you with it. It's from Kenmore mural artists Agal Coley and Stacy Edmond for a storytelling and interactive mobile app project. The purpose of the project is to document the narratives within the Kenmore mural project and make them interactive via a mobile app. So the artists the proposal assumes that the city would be the lead on the project and that we would contract with the artists and a mobile app developer. To address your comment, Mayor Baker, the app would only be compatible with the iOS system, so it would be only for iPhones and iPads. So that is one thing when you're reviewing the proposal to keep that in mind, that this would only be for Apple users. iPhone
yeah, that's
users.
a killer for me, too. I mean, there's too many people that are using Android devices. I mean, Councilmember Herbig pointed that out to me. It's in paragraph 4 on the first page.
So we will be coming back to City Council on December 5th to bring this forward.
Yeah,
or
just for your
unless-
direction on this. You can even wait till next year if you want to. We don't have to wedge it into the budget now. If you'd rather wait and give us some direction later after the first of the year, you can do that as well.
So it's been brought to my attention that, rather than if the fact that it's only for one particular model, if that's a killer for all of us.
I can't use it.
Right,
So-
and so then maybe we just want to do a thumbs up, thumbs down now.
May I make
There's no point in working on it any further if it's just going to be for an iPhone.
So one thing to consider is you could do a partial funding and look at the content creation. So working with the artists to write the content and tell the stories. And this could potentially be incorporated into the Kenmore Heritage Society's new website. So there is a way to tell that story through another avenue. It may not be the mobile app, but it could be incorporated into the new Kenmore Heritage website. So
Wasn't
that's
that a
one.
separate request?
That was, the Kenmore Heritage Society website is a separate request. This proposal is for the creation of the content
Right.
related to the Kenmore mural project. But this could tie into that project as well.
Councilmember Herwig.
Are you proposing just general fund funds, or are we looking at the art fund to fund this, or where's the
It
money coming
would
from?
be from the general fund.
Okay.
Because I hadn't talked to Leslie about this, but because you did not want to fund the church wall art, you could take money from the art fund for this as well.
I think basically my own personal opinion is this is a good idea. But the killer is that it's for one model of phone only.
And Leslie is giving you the option to just have it on the Heritage Society's
But then that
website.
doesn't do anything, somebody wandering by the mural and wanting to key.
That's not
All right, that's not this. And so, I think it's basically a good idea, but I'd love to see it develop for the mobile platform, period. So I don't know. Councilmember Sperry.
It seems to me that, having something where the images are searchable. So in other words, you could go by, take a picture of your image and then search based on that is going to help people to access the story behind the image. So to me, I don't know the technical side of it enough other than to know that I've had an old enough iPhone that mine keeps saying, you have to have a later operating system. You have to have a later operating system. So I do have some concerns about, this idea of just using iPhones or the fact that it's going to be out of date. And the other part is, everybody, it's all about being searchable. And so I'm wondering if, there's somebody that maybe has some more tech expertise that could kind of direct this. The information and the images and the stories need to be told. I'm just not sure what's the best way to do that with technology. So,
and my intent was not to get direction from you tonight. It was just to briefly summarize the memo, give you a chance to read it for a week, and then give us direction on the 5th. But if you want to give us direction tonight, you're welcome to do that as well.
So, I think basically, go ahead, Councilmember Danuski.
I don't favor doing an app if everybody can't get it on their phone. I'm wondering if first step might be to do the website, and that sounds like something that can be done much cheaper to get a website put together with clickable. Click on the picture of the mural and the story pops up, and then you've got all your content. And that could probably be done volunteer or some kind of partnership. And maybe, see how that goes before seeing if we need an app.
This could be done on Kenmore Heritage's website as a mobile thing.
Yeah, a mobile website.
A mobile website that would work both on Android and Apple and any other, mobile configuration that somebody could stand in front of that mural and bring up. So in that sense, yeah, that's a good way to do it. But to create a separate app for an iPhone, I'm just not in favor of that. But that's my opinion. Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, if this is what we're working on, or the artists are working on, and the consultants are working on, and the direction they're going is just with an iPhone, I'd say don't waste any time on it. Let's stop it right here, if that's the direction you're headed. If you're going to make it for all communication devices, then fine. But that's not what the proposal is. The proposal is for an iPhone. And I think we ought to, I'd like to move that the council reject this. And we could take a thumbs up or a thumbs down vote on it now, and then nobody will waste any more time on it if this is the way it has to go.
Okay, so
I have a question?
we got a motion.
Okay. Do you have a second?
Motion needs to be a second.
Do you have a second?
To talk.
I move that we advise these people not to proceed with this project as written.
And for discussion's sake, I'll second that. Okay, Councilmember Smith and then Councilmember Sperry.
Leslie, can you tell me on the budget side of this, on page 3 or 4 or 5, whatever that is, it has the artist fees that they get. Is that for the creation of the content?
It is. It's for the research and development, content development.
So would that content be able to be transferred or be totally utilized by the Kenmore Heritage Society? So if you eliminated the top 2 line items in that budget and you had $22.50 per artist, would that get us everything we need on the history of the mural?
So we would, you just eliminate that top one with the app, which is $5,200. So it would be 5,000.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, 5,500. Yeah, sorry, 5,000 for the artist fee for the research and content development. And there's about 100 plus images on the mural project. And so it would take a lot of time. It's going to take a significant amount of time for them to do research, and they want to do interviews as well. And then the Kenmore Heritage Society has graciously offered to review the material for accuracies as well.
So I see one of the contractors is a mobile app developer.
Mm-hmm.
So if we weren't doing the mobile app, then we wouldn't necessarily need him.
Right, and that budget actually is a little misleading if you look at it, because it's actually $4,500, not plus $2,250 plus $2,250. Right. Just so when you look at it, make sure you see that correctly.
But this is asking the city itself to manage this project. What's that going to do, time-wise and staff-wise?
Have to utilize interns to do it.
Councilmember, I'm sorry, we're coming down the line. Councilmember Sperry, and then Councilmember Herbig.
Thank you. Well, I think I really already said it, and I think Councilmember Danuski said it well, that it seems to me that putting this content in conjunction with the Heritage Society makes sense. So I don't, and we've already said it multiple times, that having a mobile app just for one type of phone doesn't make sense.
Councilmember Herbig.
I have to say, just if staff can easily find 10 grand in the general fund for this, I would be much more comfortable with this. We spent a lot of money on the mural. It's a great mural. I'm not knocking the mural. I love the mural. But if we can scrape up another 10 grand, I would rather see us increase our donation to Arch, which has been essentially flat since 1998. I'd like to see us do something a little bit more meaningful with our general fund money. So that's just my take on if we have $10,000, I'd rather put it towards something a little bit more timely.
Councilmember Danuski.
Yeah, I guess before I really decided even on the website budget, if that's the way it ends up going, it seems like a lot of money they did the mural and they did a lot of research, so I feel like most of that research they must have, because they researched to draw, the pictures that are up there. So I guess I'd want to know a little bit more on what the costs really are of that before I would approve anything.
See, for me, I understand wanting to do something like this, because as we mature as a city, we get more and more projects around the town. And, Kenmore, the hangar is going to have some artwork in it. There's other areas. City Hall's got some artwork in it that's permanent, that would be nice to have as part of a mobile website or something where somebody visiting the town or guests coming in would at least have a reference of what we have here. We're not going to create that in one day, I know, but there's a start with the mural, right? So, I mean, that's about the city manager.
I do have a recommendation. The mural's not going anywhere. And this came really late in the budget process, so late that Leslie had to scramble to put a memo together today. Can we just talk about this first quarter of next year?
Or we can talk about it at the retreat.
Yeah.
First quarter, or?
That way we can have a little more time to flesh it out and answer more of your questions. Would that be all right?
That's fine with me. Is that all right with everybody else?
We have a motion and a second on the table. So we have to take action or do something. And
so, I mean, that's not inconsistent with us talking about this later in a different context, first quarter. So if we just not want to go with this, we can vote yes. If we want to pursue this and have another meeting, then we can vote no on the motion that's on the table.
I think my motion was for them to put this on hold.
Yes, to put this particular, what he's talking about,
here, yeah.
We can discuss it further.
discussing something similar further.
Excuse me, the motion was to reject the proposal.
You reject the proposal. So yes, we'll reject this proposal and allow us to discuss this next year, next quarter. Whereas a yes means we keep this proposal, and this is the proposal we're working with. Is everybody
No, a yes is we
clear
reject
as-
this one.
Yeah,
Yes,
I mean,
it's
no is we keep this one. Now that I'm thoroughly confused. All right, so there is a motion on the table. Yes rejects, and but allows us to continue this next quarter. No keeps this one in force, and this is the one that we work with.
minutes. What? I'd like the motion repeated, please.
Clerk?
The motion was to reject this proposal.
Thank you. Okay, now I understand.
Okay. Reject this, but still keep the subject open to talk about next quarter.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So, clerk, take the roll.
Councilmember Smith?
I will vote yes, but I also would like us to make sure that we have a recorded history of that mural.
Yeah.
Councilmember Herbig?
Yes.
Councilmember Sperry?
Yes.
Councilmember Danuski?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Van Ness?
My objection is in the format of the presentation, and therefore I vote yes.
Mayor Baker?
So, see, I could take the same attitude that we can't have unanimous, but yes.
6-0.
Should have given a real reason.
All right.
A few more things.
Why did I know yes?
So I emailed you a draft salary plan with comparisons, I can't remember, a week or so ago. I would like to give it out to employees for them to review and comment, and the goal is to have council adoption of it on the 12th. So unless I hear any questions or concerns, I'm going to give a draft of that salary plan for staff to review tomorrow morning. Okay. And then Town Square update. Debbie Bent and John Vicente and Leslie Harris and I did a walkthrough of the Town Square. It's coming together quite nicely. The bummer is it won't be done in time for the tree lighting event this weekend. So we're going to have to deal with that fence still there and people going back and forth between City Hall and Kenmore Camera in a safe manner. And the other bummer is more concrete panels are coming out. The cracks are just too big in several panels, so you're going to see more jackhammering. But we are doing what we can to hold the contractor to the quality that we want, because if you're seeing there's always going to be cracks, and there'll be cracks that'll show up 6 months from now, 2 years from now. But if they're showing up now, they're going to get even bigger. And so we're totally within the rights of our contract to have them tear out those panels.
So we're not jackhammering panels that we've jackhammered before.
We might be.
And these are at their cost, not ours, right?
That's right. With one exception.
Are these inside, outside? Where are these panels?
They're outside.
Okay.
In the plaza. The concrete inside looks pretty good.
Okay.
With one exception is that we need to babysit and manage that project even longer now. So our special inspector, we have to pay that person more. What we're looking at doing, though, is we're into a liquidated damages scenario now. And our project manager has notified the contractor as much. So speaking of which, the holiday tree lighting is this Saturday from 4 to 8 p.m. There's going to be some new additions and twists added, and it's really exciting. And I have a feeling that it's going to be a madhouse in a good way, because I'm having people I run into in the community, my neighbors, are bringing it up and talking about it. So I think it's going to be very, very well attended. So good job, you guys. And then lastly, we have reason to celebrate, and I would actually like to break out some sparkling cider right now for something happened that was really worth celebrating last week, and that is Standard & Poor's notified our finance director, Joanne Gregory, that we earned a AAA bond rating. That's the highest level that they award.
That's amazing.
And so, on cue, just a second.
That was pretty good.
It's a really long queue.
Clearly, we cut costs to get there.
All right, just bear with me here. I think we should raise a toast to our finance director who led the charge in this bond rating. Also, the city council. Your policies and your conservative fiscal policies were a major component of this AAA bond rating. The fund balances that you have worked so hard to maintain at a high level were very important to the rating agency. So clearly a team effort. Our whole city staff and the work they do to keep us clean and keep our finances where they're supposed to be definitely all contributed to this AAA bond rating. So I think it's really remarkable.
On the table over here, too.
Yeah, people in the audience.
Here.
I think it's really remarkable that the first time we ever go out for debt is we also get a AAA bond rating. So the federal government can't even say that.
Right.
So.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So basically, it's as good as you can get.
Wow, all right, thanks so much.
What's even more amazing to me is that often the bond rating is awarded on the basis of the financial history of the organization. And this organization does not have a bond history. This is the first time we've gone out for a bond. So we don't have a record of bond issuance and repayment. It's kind of like a credit rating. If you've never owed anybody any money, what's your credit rating? What do they have to base it on? So this is remarkable that we can get the AAA based on the financial operations of the city.
So you'd be forced to drink the first one.
So, Rob?
Yeah.
What is it? Leslie doesn't drink?
So, Rob, on this...
Can we raise a little toast?
Sure.
Yeah. So, Mayor, do you want to lead us in this?
No, not particularly. You can do it.
Well, yeah. Well, let's raise a non-alcoholic, sparkling cider toast to our AAA bond rating, to our finance director, Joanne Gregory, who led us on that, City Council and their financial policies, and the whole city team. So Cheers to everybody. Thank you. Cheers. And that's all I have, Your Honor.
Pretty cool.
How's anybody going to
Joanne,
follow
I
that
mean,
up?
we thanked you last week, but I mean, seriously, this was just an awesome performance from both you and the city manager and all the staff that backed you up and supported you. I mean, this is really, really awesome that we got a AAA bond rating and that our first time out, a young city. I mean, it's seriously everybody's hard work, and we really thank you for it. And I'm really going to be curious what the interest rate is.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was wondering.
Anyway, that's it. Comments, reports. Councilmember Smith.
Well, I'd just like to thank the finance director and Rob and my peers and the staff for all the good work on that, because that, of all the things that you can be proud of doing in your city, I think one of the things that is the nicest is when you feel like you've upheld a reasonably good financial benchmark for future councils and city managers to work with. And so it's something to be very proud of.
Councilmember Sperry.
I would agree.
Councilmember Herbig.
Nothing to add.
Councilmember Danuski.
I just wanted to say thank you to the council for participating and helping our Kenmore kids with the Secret Santa program this year.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I missed the meeting last week due to this cold that I still have, but you should have been up here. I got it from David in the first place 2 weeks ago.
Good. Yeah.
Right. In the meantime, David and I went to the National League of Cities meeting, and maybe that didn't help things too much. But rather than giving you a lot of detail about what was presented, the hot topics this year seem to be centered around the heroin problem as a big item, the innovation and technology and so on in various areas of government and transportation and so on. One interesting thing that one city has done with an entrepreneur who came up with an app for the parking meters. Rather than replacing all the parking meters that you put coins in, and it really doesn't apply to us because we don't have any parking meters, but you can go up the parking meter and you can enter in the meter number and then pay the parking on your phone, which then goes to the police department. And when the meter reader comes around and he sees an expired meter, he looks it up on his, he says, okay, yeah, it's paid. And they have increased collections on their parking meters tremendously with us. And this was, I think this was in the city of Pittsburgh. A lot of interesting stuff that people from Pittsburgh are doing, and they're the host city for the meeting. And Pittsburgh's a different place today than it was 30, 40 years ago. And it was an amazing city to have the meeting in. All in all, there were a number of good classes that we attended. It's really hard when you have somebody giving a 45, 50-minute presentation and they're taking a topic and condensing everything they know into that 45 or 50 minutes. And then for me to come back home and say, okay, here's 2 minutes of the highlights of their highlights of 50 minutes. But it's one of those things where you really needed to be there. And if the rest of the council, if you can see where clearly, go to these national NLC meetings, there's a lot to be learned. The Transportation Infrastructure Committee, which I've been on for many years, we added to it information on technology that hadn't been there before. The most technological thing in the whole policy was that we favor metered on-ramps on freeways. So it's got a lot more stuff in there now, and to the point where the NLC is contemplating establishing another advisory committee on technology and innovation in all sorts of city applications, not just transportation, a separate committee on this. So it might be interesting to see how that works out. David, you might want to comment some things that I've missed.
No, I think
But in general, I thought it was really a great meeting. And Nigel was there. You attended a lot of the classes. And, I think it's a worthwhile thing to attend and a worthwhile investment from a city standpoint. So if you get a chance to clear your schedules to go to these meetings, there's one in November every year that rotates around the country. Next year is where? In Orlando? No,
next to Charlotte.
Charlotte. And then in March is the meeting in D.C. where we visit our representatives on the Hill, as well as hear from representatives from the federal government speaking to us about various policies and so on. So 2 different purposes, but you get the same bunch of great city people, and this one was over 3,000 representatives from cities across the country. And you develop friendships with a lot of these people, and you find out that what little problems Kenmore has are really pale compared to what many other cities our same size are fighting. And it's interesting to talk to them as to how they're resolving these difficulties or problems and innovating in various ways. So urge you all to attend if you can. Oh, and Friday is a technology conference down at Maidenbauer Center. I don't know how many of you are signed up to attend. It ought to be, promises to be a real interesting conference, and hopefully there's going to be some good take-home information for us policymakers and the planners from the cities that attend.
Yeah, one of the classes there was on self-driving cars in Pittsburgh and what the future holds. So there's some interesting things.
There's a fleet of Uber self-drivers in Pittsburgh now.
Well, I mean, yes, but there's 2 drivers in the car. So
yeah, but they're not steering.
Really. Friday night, there's an event here in City Hall, thanking all the yellow shirts and the people that work so hard to help get ST3 passed.
That's Thursday, isn't it?
Thursday, the 1st, yep. And it's 6 to 7. Pizza and stuff, and we certainly hope that people come because we really want to thank them for all their hard work. There was a map that I got from Dow Constantine, I think, that appeared in the Seattle Times, and ST3 did very well in this area, so we're very pleased. I've managed, Dow Constantine was going to come, but he's going to be in D.C., so he can't come. But he is having Peter Rogoff, the head of Sound Transit, come, and we're going to let him say a couple of words. And I believe Claudia Balducci, one of the board members, is also going to, and former mayor of Bellevue, we're also trying to get her appearance there too. I think, in reality, that's it, unless there's any other stuff coming in front. Oh, yes. So, last session, the number of people worked very, very hard on getting the legislation enacted that allowed things to happen at St. Ed's. And so I went to the bill signing, and I managed to strong-arm the governor, and I got the pen that he actually signed the legislation with. And so there's the legislation, and there's the pen, and we're going to have this here in City Hall. So it's one of the first things that we've actually worked hard and got passed. I thought it would be good to mark the occasion. Okay. So anyway, there we go.
Catalog that.
And with that, we're adjourned.